Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarech, we will be learning together today the third and final portion in the Hakdama to the Sefer Mishneh Torah of the Rambam. In the first portion of the Hakdama, the Rambam went through the 40 dairas, the 40 generations from Moshe Rabbeinu, of his receiving of the Torah at Har Sinai, all the way to Rav Ashi, who is responsible for the Chibur HaGemara, putting together the Gemara. In the second portion of the Hakdama, the Rambam spoke about the actual materialization of the Gemara and other post-Talmudic texts, and he discussed the difference between the times of the Gemara and the Mishnah, when there was one Messiah that seemingly all of Klal Yisrael accepted, which was written down in the Gemara, and then the transition into the post-Talmudic era, where there were many Batei Din and many Shitas and many Dayanim, and Jews spread out to all different areas in the world, and what became from that was a more diverse Messiah, a more diverse route of Psak, and how we transitioned from one specific Messiah to many Messiahs, and the way that one would make the decision between one Shita and the other would be by choosing what's most logical, not what the entire Klal Yisrael accepted. And now in the third portion of the Rambam's Hakdama, he's going to discuss what caused him to create the Sefer Mishneh Torah and what he tried to accomplish by putting together this 14-volume book, Sefer. And we're going to start by the words Udvarim Halalu, talking about what we discussed before, that when there is a difference of opinion, that you follow the one that is more logical. But the Rambam is now going to add a slight asterisk to that statement. Udvarim halalu bedinim gzeiris v'sakanos u'minhagos shenitzchadshu acher chibur haGemara. All those things that we discussed, that you choose the most logical one, that is referring to different laws and different decrees and different customs that were nischadesh. They were created acher chibur haGemara, after the time period of the Gemara. Aval kol hadvarim sheb'Gemara habavli, but anything that's written in the Bavli itself, chayavin kol Yisrael aleches bahem, we have a requirement to follow those rules. V'chayfin kol ir va'ir v'chol medina u'medina linhag b'chol haminhagos shenagu chachmei haGemara. And not only that, but we force every single city to follow those customs that they were accustomed to at the time of the Gemara. And to follow their decrees and to institute them. The reason why is because those rules that were written down in the Gemara, they were accepted by either the entire Klal Yisrael or at least the majority. And as we say, Ruba Kekula, that a majority is like the entire Klal Yisrael accepting something. Vehem sheshamu hakabala b'ikriyat Torah kula dar achar dar ad Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom. And not only that, but the sages that instituted those rules and decrees, they came from a chain of Messiah, generation after generation, all the way to our teacher Moshe Rabbeinu. V'chol hachachamim sha'amdu achar chibur haGemara and all the sages that came after the conclusion of the Gemara, and they understood it, and they gained a name as somebody who had a understanding of the Gemara. They were called the Ga'onim. So after the Dar of the Amirayim, which was the Dar of Rav Ashi, that put together the Gemara, the next generation was called the Ga'onim. V'chol elu ha'ga'onim she'amdu b'Eretz Yisrael u'v'Eretz Shinar u'v'Sfarad u'v'Tzarfas, and there were these type of sages in Eretz Yisrael and in Bavel and in Spain and in France, and lamdu derech ha'Gemara v'haitziu la'or ta'alumaysav uve'aru inyanav. So what did they do? They taught the Gemara and they revealed its secrets and they explained its explanations. Because as we know, the language of the Gemara is very cryptic, and not only that, shu b'lashon Arami. So the Rambam gives us a little lesson. He says, what was the Gemara written? And it was written in Aramaic, together with other languages. Because, why was it written in this language? Because that was the language of Bavel at the time when the Gemara was put together. Everybody spoke the language. It was the easily understood language. After, in every other place, besides in Shinar, no one understood Aramaic. And not only that, but by the time that the Ga'onim came around, the language itself had disappeared from Bavel. And the only person who would understand the Gemara is someone who was taught it. So what happened? So what happened? We had the first examples of Shilas and Shuvas. People would send in questions to these Go'inim. Whoever the Go'inim were at their time, they would ask their questions to explain, what does this mean, what does that mean, and they would understand, they would explain it, they would respond with their explanations in their level of understanding. And people would take the questions and the replies and they would make them into Sfarim to learn from them so that they could better understand. There were also Sfarim that the Go'inim themselves put together so that people could understand the Gemara. Mehem mi sheperish halachas yichidos umehem sheperish prakim yichidim sheniskashu biyamav. And there were different styles. There were some people that put together explanations of certain halachas that were brought down in the Gemara, and there were some people that explained certain chapters or certain paragraphs that were very difficult. And there were even those that put together these farm explaining entire tractates and entire orders of the Gemaras. Some put together halachas farm that explained all the halachas of Isra v'Heter. Or v'chiyuv u'pater. Others put together these sefers that would explain when you're obligated and when you're exempt. V'dvarim hasha'at tzricha lahem. All the driving force between all these different Sfarim were what the time required of them. Kadesh, Yu, Kraivim, Lamada, Misha, Ena Yachol, Leided, La'amuka, Shal Gemara. And what was it for? It was for somebody who wasn't able to grasp, right, and comprehend the depths of the Gemara, that they would be able to access the things that were required for them at that time. V'zoihi melechas Hashem, she'asu ba kol ga'ina Yisrael miyoim, shechubra haGemara v'ad zman hazeh. And this was the work, the holy work, that the Go'inim of Klal Yisrael did from the time that the Gemara was put together until this time. Shehi Shana Shminis Achar Meya ve'elef l'churban habayis, which is 1,108 years after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, which was V'yishnas Arbas Alofim Uchames Ushleishim V'sheva Lebrias Olam, which was 4,937 years after the creation of the world, which, just for context, would be 1,177 years of the Common Era, just to put a date to the secular calendar. So the year 1177, which was when the Rambam finished his at least finished Hakdama to the Mishnah Torah. In this year, there's even more difficulties. And everybody feels the pressure of the times. And the wisdom of our sages have become lost, and the understanding has become hidden. So what happened? All the explanations and the laws and the replies that the Go'inim put together, which they thought were going to be considered fully explained, even those have become difficult to understand, and only a few remain that are able to understand this in the proper way. And for sure, the actual Gemara itself has become uncomprehendable by the common folk. Habavlis v'Yerushalmis, both the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, v'Sifra v'Sifrei v'Atei Sefta shehem tzrichen das rechava v'nefesh chachma uzman arich, and for sure the other parts of the oral law which require a wide knowledge and understanding and plenty of time to go through them. V'achar kach yivad amehem haderech hanechayna b'dvarim ha'asurim v'amutarim u'shar dinei ha'Torah ha'echu. And then, only then can you understand what is permitted and forbidden and all the other laws of the Torah and how to do them. And now the Rambam's going to explain what was the driving force behind his Mishneh Torah. I extenuated myself. Ani Moshe ben Maimon Asfardi. I, Moses, the son of Maimon from Spain. Vinish anti al Hatzor Baruchu. And I relied upon Hashem. Blessed be He. And what did he do? Uvinaisi b'chol elu asparim v'ra'isi lechaber dvarim hamizbarim mikol elu hachiburim be'inyan iser v'hamoter hatam v'hatar im shardini atayra. I looked in all these svarim and I wanted to compose a work that was derived from all these texts, which would explain what is permitted and what is not permitted, what is considered pure and what is considered impure, along with all the other laws of the Torah, kulam b'lashon brura v'derech ktsara, all in a clear language and a short, comprehensible work. And this, we see, is probably one of the reasons why the Rambam wrote the Mishneh Torah in Lashon HaKodesh. As is known, the Rambam's native language was Arabic, and he wrote many of his works in Arabic, like the Sefer HaMitzvahs. And the Sefer HaMitzvahs that we have today in Hebrew is just a translation, but the Mishneh Torah was written specifically in Lashon HaKodesh. For this reason, so people would understand it. Ad shetehei Torah shebal peh kula sdura b'fi Yaakov v'loi kushya v'loi peruk, until every person is able to have Torah shebal peh be part of his daily comprehension, and there would be no questions or objections. There would be no arguments where one person says this is the rule and this is the rule. Eladvarim, brudim, krivim, nechainim, apia mishpat, asher yisboyer, mikol elu, hachiburim, vahaperushim, hanimtsoim, imais rabbeinu, hakadosh, va'ad achshav. I want to create a work which will contain all the laws in a clear way, in the spirit of the law, that explains all the publications that happened from Rebbe, who compiled the Mishnah until today. Ad shiyu kol adinim gluyim lekatan ulegadol b'din kol mitzvah v'din kol advarim shetiknu chachamim uneviim, until from the smallest of the small to the greatest of the great, the mitzvah and the din will become clear. All of Torah Shebal Peh that the chachamim established would be understood by every member of Klal Yisrael. Klalei shel davar. To summarize, the Rambam says, the purpose of this text is that a person will never need to put together another text for Jewish law. That this text will contain everything from Moshe Rabbeinu until the dissemination of the Gemara, and all the explanations that the Geonim used to explain the Gemara. And it is for that reason that I have chosen to call my Sefer Mishneh Torah. Because as long as a person reads the Torah Shebichsav first, and then a person reads my Sefer, he'll understand all of Torah Shebal Peh, and he will never have to read another Jewish text after reading these two. The Rambam is saying beferish that was his goal when putting together this Sefer, the Sefer Mishneh Torah. The Rambam is now going to go on to explain how he organized his Sefer Mishneh Torah. I decided to divide the text into separate halachas pertaining to one subject. And then I took those general, let's call them chapters of halachas, and I broke them up into sub-chapters within that one idea. And then within each chapter, you had sub-halachas within the chapter, in order that a person would be able to remember them in his memory. And with regard to each halacha, which comes with each subject matter, some of them have many chapters on one halacha alone, meaning one biblical commandment. But there were many traditions and gzeiros, etc., that came from that one halacha. So therefore, it gets its own category. There are other inyanim, there are other subject materials that have many mitzvahs. But because they are all connected to one thing, so they were put into one place. Why? The Rambam explains, because I broke this publication into concepts, not into number of mitzvahs. And that will become clear as we go on in the Sefer. And now the Rambam says the number of mitzvahs that are incumbent on us in all times. This is, of course, to exclude the mitzvahs that only took place at one certain time period. Sheish me'os Ushleish asrei mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, mehem mitzvahs asay, masayim, adba'im ushmaina. And within that 613, we have positive commandments, which number 248, simin lahem, and the way to remember 248 is minyan, evarav shal adam, the number of limbs in a person's body. Umehem mitzvahs laisase, and there's also negative commandments, shalish meis v'shishim v'chamesh, which number to 365, simin lahem, minyan imeshnas achama. The way to remember that is the number of days in the solar year. And with that, we finish the third and final part of the Rambam's Hakdama, the Mishneh Torah. Tomorrow we will begin the Minyan HaMitzvahs.